Hey guys, it's time for a probably much anticipated Tech News Day. It's a big week.
That's a really interesting question, Ricky, and you know what? We're going to get back to you on that.
You are not doing yourself any favors by people thinking you're an alien or a robot, Mr. Zuckerberg.
Well, you see, the thing about suits is they're very tight around the neck, and I need a lot of water. On Tuesday, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, the Zuck, took a trip over to Washington, D.C. for a little chat with the U.S. Senate's Judiciary and Commerce Committees to clear the air over that whole massive data breach thing where data firm Cambridge Analytica managed to get access to the profiles of tens of millions of people without their consent using functionality that was built right into Facebook. Whoops. And while many were expecting our nation's top lawmakers to come out swinging and give the Zuck a tongue lashing that would finally put him in his place, that didn't happen, really, at all.
Turns out a group of people whose average age is 62 and includes several people who literally don't even know how to use a computer. It's not the ideal group for tackling the shadiness of a major tech company in any meaningful way. That's not to say it was all softballs though, but the hearing, which lasted for 5 hours and continued into Wednesday, mainly involved senators talking about regulating Facebook in the vaguest possible terms and giving off the vibe of, please fix your shit, Mark, because we don't really want to have to do this ourselves because we don't actually understand how any of this works. That was very apparent.
Yeah. Why doesn't my grandson accept my Farmville request, Mark? Even when Zuckerberg was asked legitimate, specific questions, his responses were repeatedly just basically, "That's a great question, Senator. That's something we'd be happy to discuss further with you later on." And hey, if the conversation truly does continue from this point, that's great. It's just that pretty much nothing came out of that hearing of any meaning. Anyone expecting Mark Zuckerberg to finally let his guard down and speak candidly instead got Zuckerberg at his most robotic and disingenuous yet, talking like a human press release.
Yeah, and everyone was saying online that he looked like Data from Star Trek.
Yeah, he does.
The best was when he walked right into a fucking joke on him where they were like, hey, would you mind telling everyone what hotel you stayed in? Or, maybe the last couple people you talked with today?
No, I would not.
No, obviously not.
Oh, shit, it got me.
Oh, yeah, okay, I get it now. Fuck. I can't believe how easily he walked into that.
He is a strange, strange man.
Street smarts, not to be confused with book smarts. Ever. Anyways, the only things that were really newsworthy about the hearing were that, one, Zuckerberg admitted that Facebook has been cooperating with Robert Mueller's special counsel investigation into Russian election interference, though he wouldn't say much beyond that, and two, that they're not ruling out the possibility of a paid version of Facebook that's ad-free and presumably data mining free, if you can trust them. Everything else was basically a rehash of the vaguely apologetic posts Zuckerberg had been making on his Facebook page for the last year every time his company ended up in the news for doing something shitty.
Yeah, so anyway, let's just run down the highlights of this hearing because that's just one of two hearings we have to talk about. The next day, Zuck spoke at a hearing in the House of Representatives. So, outside of the Senate hearing, Mark Zuckerberg was greeted by tons of protesters, including this terrifying army of cardboard Zuckerbergs.
I can't tell the difference. Which one is which?
Yeah. Which Zuckerberg was at that hearing? We don't know.
We don't know.
He's got a whole closet full of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, and once he got inside the Senate halls, he was greeted by an army of strangers with cameras snapping away at every pore on his face. Gosh, whatever happened to privacy, guys? Jeez.
Wow. Anyways, then came Zuck's prepared statement, which was one big milquetoast press release where he pretended to be super sorry and pretended that the main goal of Facebook is to connect people across the world. Then came the questions. Each senator was only given 5 minutes of one-on-one questioning, but there were a few highlights. Probably the best one being this comment from Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. Here's what everyone's been trying to tell you today, and I say this gently. Your user agreement sucks. The purpose of that user agreement is to cover Facebook's rear end. It's not to inform your users about their rights.
Got him. Senator Gary Peters of Michigan used his time to tell Mark Zuckerberg that many of his constituents had told him that they think Facebook records their conversations and uses it to send them targeted ads about what they're talking about. This is a conspiracy theory that keeps coming up and keeps getting debunked pretty conclusively, even by Facebook's critics. So it is hilarious seeing this get brought up on the Senate floor and seeing Mark Zuckerberg have to answer, well, no.
I did have firsthand experience with this the other day. I had a friend over and, we all love LaCroix, but I've been trying the bubbly stuff. So I was like, hey, do you want a bubbly? It's got the same flavors. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. And he sent me a screenshot 20 minutes later and he goes, I've never heard of, said the word, or looked at anything related to bubbly sparkling water. And this is the third Instagram ad I've gotten in 20 minutes through scrolling, and it was a bubbly ad. So I'm on the conspiracy train with this.
Well, what? Maybe here's a possibility. Maybe Facebook isn't recording you. Instagram is.
Well, it's owned by the same company.
I know, but well, technically.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
No, Facebook never recorded you. Oh, Instagram?
Yeah.
That's a great question, Ricky, and we're gonna have to.
We're gonna look into it.
We're gonna look into this.
Anyways, moving on. California Senator Dianne Feinstein, she questioned Zuckerberg about what Facebook is doing about stuff like election interference and disinformation from entities like Russia's Internet Research Agency, and asked him how many fake accounts they've banned in relation to that. Zuckerberg then listed the usual numbers: 470 accounts they attributed to the Internet Research Agency used during the U.S. elections, but then said that, quote, "There are many others that our systems catch, which are more difficult to attribute specifically to Russian intelligence, but the number would be in the tens of thousands of fake accounts."
Okay. California's other senator, Kamala Harris, gave Zuckerberg the closest thing to a grilling from the whole hearing, criticizing Zuckerberg for not actually answering many of the questions that he'd been posed by other senators, specifically about how much Facebook tracks its users. She then pressed Zuckerberg about why it took 27 months for Facebook to admit that a personality test app had gathered and misappropriated user data, ending up in the hands of Cambridge Analytica, eventually getting him to admit that yes, even though he claims to remember nothing about it, there had in fact been a specific decision by Facebook's top brass to not inform users that their data had been misappropriated. The whole line of questioning was some ace attorney shit. She was the former Attorney General of California, so she was the only one who just would not let him even get out a PR response.
No.
Just trapping him where he had to answer one of two possible terrible ways.
Anyway, Senator and alleged Zodiac killer Ted Cruz of Texas decided that the best use of his time here was to completely ignore the whole data privacy issue, probably because he himself employed Cambridge Analytica during his 2016 presidential run. So he instead focused specifically on whether or not Facebook was politically biased in the ways they chose to shut down profiles and pages for TOS violations. He also asked Zuckerberg why Oculus founder and Ted Cruz donor Palmer Luckey was fired from Facebook, which Zuck replied was a specific personal matter not related to politics it would also be inappropriate to discuss in an open Senate hearing. Great use of your time, Ted.
Yeah, I don't know. Did they fire Palmer Luckey for starting a Donald Trump meme page? Or did they fire him because he lied and ended up costing Facebook $2 billion in intellectual property theft? Who's to say?
Could be either, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, while all that was happening in one chamber of the Senate, with most of the questioning related to whether Facebook could be trusted to self-regulate without actually being bound by legislation, elsewhere in the building, Senators Edward Markey and Richard Blumenthal were introducing actual legislation related to consumer protection and privacy. They're calling it the Consent Act, which is short for Customer Online Notification for Stopping Edge Provider Network Transgressions Act, because every fucking piece of legislation needs a ridiculous forced acronym so people really get it.
Yeah, they come up with the acronym first and then they build off of that.
Yeah.
It's a fun way to use time. What the Consent Act proposes is that the Federal Trade Commission forces companies like Google and Facebook to 1. Obtain opt-in consent from users to sell, share, or use users' personal information. 2. Develop reasonable data security practices. 3. Notify users about all collection, use, and sharing of their personal information. And 4. Notify users in the event of a breach. Seems pretty sensible to me.
I don't know. Do we really need regulation? You're going to stifle competition.
The thing
competition to which Zuckerberg cannot think of a single actual competitor to his website.
What we need to do is more deregulation, because then the market will solve itself.
That's right. The invisible hand.
Yes, exactly.
That's right. Anyways, on Wednesday, Zuckerberg showed up back at the Capitol to appear before the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, where he read off the exact same opening statement as yesterday, like some sort of robot.
They didn't even patch him for the next day.
Anyways, this hearing was happening while we were writing this episode, so we're going to have to kind of rush through it. But in general, the House members who questioned Zuckerberg did so a lot more aggressively than the senators did on Tuesday. And specifically, they showed a lot more annoyance at the way that Zuckerberg basically filibusters questions by going into long rehearsed PR statements instead of just fucking answering the questions.
Yeah. Again, the conversations were often about whether Facebook can be trusted to police itself or should be regulated by the government. And Zuckerberg at one point conceded that regulation was probably inevitable. Representative Jan Schakowsky of Illinois began her time by reading off a long list of Zuckerberg's many previous apologies and then telling him, "This is proof to me that self-regulation simply does not work." She also asked how many other companies Alexander Kogan sold his data to which Zuck replied, "A handful."
Oh, great!
Yeah.
And one of Zuckerberg's go-to responses for a lot of questions was saying that users have complete control over who gets to see what they post and what kind of permissions they consent to. But he also admitted to Representative Brett Guthrie that most people don't actually use their privacy controls. And the reason he gave for why that is because people like getting relevant ads. Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's why they're not digging down into the settings.
Should I turn off my... No, I would like... But where would I get my relevant ads if I change my settings?
The truth is that 90% of people just log on and don't give a shit about what's happening on the website.
Well, yeah, and also it's hard to even find those settings. You got to go through a lot of menus.
Put yourself in the shoes of a 65-year-old senator.
The website itself is a fucking mess. All I use the site for is events, and it's like every time I feel like it's in a different part of the page.
Yeah,
like, just take
they
me where I want to
should have just
go.
pulled a person of the same age as like a senator from the crowd and been like, "Hey, I'm sure you have a Facebook page. Go fiddle with your privacy settings."
No, I don't know how to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just give them a laptop and see how long it takes.
Yeah. So at another point, Zuckerberg admitted that his own data was included in the Cambridge Analytica breach. So I guess he should have checked those permissions, buddy.
Guess it's not too easy.
The freedom was in your hands.
Anyways, here's two pretty solid quotes from the hearing, which may be a little paraphrased since they were live blogged. But Bill Johnson of Ohio said, quote, "Oftentimes technology folks spend all their time focusing on what they can do instead of what they should do," which is basically the Dr. Ian Malcolm response. And Billy Long of Missouri told Zuck, "Congress does nothing or it overreacts. We're getting ready to overreact."
Uh-oh.
We warned you 10, 12 times. And baby, the 50th is gonna be the last straw. That overreaction could mean new regulation, but it could also mean recommending that the FTC issue massive fines to Facebook because they've already had an ongoing deal with the FTC over user consent, and many are now arguing that they totally failed at keeping up their end of the deal. It's a bad deal. I guess we'll have to see though.
I love this because like all these senators, like the whole overreaction thing, it's totally right. Now that they've got constituents being like, "What are you gonna do about Facebook?" They're like, "Yes, finally something I can do that requires almost no work
and will make my constituents very happy."
Yeah. I stood up to Facebook when no one else wanted to. I'm protecting your data.
It's an easy win, and I hope they take it.
It's a softball.
Fucking
Yeah.
nail it, please.
So of course there was other Facebook news to come out over the last week because the news starts coming and it don't stop coming. Mark Zuckerberg admitted that, yeah, sure, he has the ability to delete his sent messages from their recipients' inboxes despite this not being a feature available to anyone else. But then hours later, sure enough, Facebook revealed that there's a hot new feature coming to their platform that allows users to unsend their sent messages. Huh!
Is there like a time delay on that or something?
There is. It's almost like Facebook doesn't do anything until they're caught by the media, and then
this all goes down to like, I'm not aware of the exact specifics of it, but the European or the UK law, whichever one it is, that does the right to delete.
Yeah,
that should be a thing that happens in America because at this point it would be nice to just flush Facebook right now and start over with a new kind of slate. People are going to still use it.
Every time this comes up with these Silicon Valley guys, they're like, "Yeah, that's a great feature. We should implement that." And then they'll be like, "So, do you think there should be a law that allows that?" Well, no. I mean, but we'll do it. So why not just make it a law and then you follow the law? Well, I mean, we don't want to stifle innovation, but you said you would do it. Yeah, but. In other news, though, there's a new page on Facebook where you can go and check to see if any of your data was accessed by Cambridge Analytica despite you never using it. Though the page still lacks a fundamental detail that we would demand if we were US senators. It simply says one of your friends used the "This is your digital life" app that harvested the data. But not which one of your friends was it. Which one of your idiot friends?
Yeah.
This is definitely an instance that calls for shaming. Name them, shame them. I want to know, because I checked it. Someone on my idiot friends list did it.
Yeah.
They didn't get a whole lot because I barely use the damn thing, but
I don't use Facebook, but I'm sure some of my idiot's friends did for sure. They got to know about their personalities. They couldn't just ask someone. Yeah, you're a fucking idiot. That's the answer.
Anyways, once people started checking that page, though, some noticed that listed among the things Cambridge Analytica had accessed, like your newsfeed and your post, it also listed private messages.
Whoops.
The specifics of what this means, it's still pretty unclear, but that's troubling.
Yeah. Speaking of Cambridge Analytica, though, The Guardian looked into how their data mining had affected Australia and New Zealand, and the numbers for those places are pretty insane. Just 53 Australians used the quiz app that collected the data. They're smart down there. They've been fooled one too many times.
I don't need no personality app.
I know who I am. But anyways, just having 53 Australians use that quiz app, that allowed Cambridge Analytica to access the profiles of 311,000 users. Wow. In New Zealand, just 10 people used the app, even smarter than Australia. That's why they broke away and floated away. Yeah. They had enough. Goodbye. We're taking the kiwi birds and we're leaving.
We've had enough of this dangerous wildlife.
We're gonna separate us with a big piece of ocean. Anyways, just 10 people used the app in New Zealand, but it was enough to get 64,000 profiles. Oh, jeez.
It's like a virus.
Yeah, it really is.
It's basically a virus. Yeah. Oh, and in a shock to absolutely no one, turns out Cambridge Analytica was just one of several companies doing the exact same thing.
Oh, you don't say.
AggregateIQ, a Canadian data analytics firm, used similar tactics to help campaigns for Brexit and various other right-wing populist causes in the UK. Facebook has now suspended the company's operations on Facebook after various news reports made allegations of a partnership between AggregateIQ and Cambridge Analytica, which presumably involved sharing data or selling data to each other.
Anyway, the whole separate issue of Russian troll accounts from the Internet Research Agency, of course, isn't just a Facebook problem. For the past year, many have accused Reddit of harboring these kinds of Russian accounts and letting them basically run wild. And now Reddit has finally come out and admitted what everyone already assumed. Reddit CEO Steve Huffman, aka Spez, posted to the site's announcements forum on Tuesday, admitting that they'd found and eliminated 944 accounts that they'd tied to that Russian troll farm. And interestingly, he provided a list of those accounts, which you can still view despite them being unable to post anymore.
Yeah, and the real number is probably much higher than 944, but whatever. This still gives us an interesting glimpse at what these sorts of accounts look like, and it turns out they look pretty normal. They look like normal average Reddit accounts with a right-wing bent. Most of them never managed to achieve a positive karma score, and they did the majority of their posting on r/funny, presumably because it's an easy place to mine karma and gain some clout, as well as r/unsend, which is a subreddit for the stories that Reddit doesn't want you to see. The only subreddits that really stand out here are the Trump fan board r/Donald and the anti-racism board r/racism.
In general, it sounds like Russia's efforts on Reddit were mostly unsuccessful, at least in terms of posts, because unlike Facebook, Reddit has pretty robust moderation. Most of the time at least, and it's kind of self-moderated by up and down votes, although you can fix those sometimes if you have enough accounts and all that. But one thing that this report doesn't really address, though, is the theory that Russian trolls put less effort into actually posting things and more effort into upvoting and downvoting posts to make them more or less visible, like I just said. And that would give the impression that certain opinions were more or less popular. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it would be very easy to do.
Yes. If you look at the votes to comments ratios on subreddits like the Donald, it seems to be a plausible theory, though one that would be very hard to prove.
Yeah, this is Donald posts like 10,000 upvotes, 30 comments.
Oh, and also there's always downvote brigades on certain news stories.
Yeah.
Where it's like 5 minutes after it's posted, there's 10,000 downvotes.
Sunk like a rock. Yeah. Anyway, we got more tech news this week, but we're exhausted from all this shit. So let's call in a ringer. Phil, get down here. What else did we miss?
Wow, so the world is still a terrible place, but sometimes there's good news sprinkled in, so let's start with that this week. You ever have an expensive piece of gear with a warranty void sticker removed on it? Well, typically these warnings are to deter consumers like you and me from repairing or upgrading or hacking the electronics so that the company who makes said product can ensure that they get the most profit from that product. So they upgrade the RAM and you don't, or they fix the logic board and you don't. Well, the Federal Trade Commission is in your corner and sent 6 letters to major companies warning that these policies are prohibited by law under the FTC Act. So bam, that's one for us. Now, they didn't say which companies were on the receiving end of these sternly worded letters, but these companies produce automobiles, cellular devices, and video gaming systems. Beep, beep, pop, oh my god, my Xbox is broken, better get a new place to... So anyway, this is all super relevant this week because Apple, my favorite way to waste money, is crippling iPhones that have been repaired by third-party shops. Basically, if you had your non-authorized repair done on your iPhone screen on the cheap by some scumball in a strip mall, the auto-dim function is no longer going to work because Apple are disabling the light sensor on non-official parts or repairs. Now, that doesn't sound like a huge deal, but it's a very scummy move in the vein of the dreaded Error 53, which you might remember that Apple unleashed in 2016. And what that did is iPhones went into a boot loop if your screen was replaced by a non-licensed Apple repair shop. See, Apple
Take
wants
that,
them
poor
money.
people.
Yeah, don't buy Apple unless you're going to give Apple more of your Apple bucks. So anyone who owns a PC or likes to tinker with any kind of device knows how ridiculous these policies are. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all of this shakes out. Now, even if there's a law in place that says cracking your device open won't void the warranty, I mean, basically all the cool electronics are getting harder and harder to repair since they're basically tiny waterproof computers whose guts fit together like origami puzzles. I mean, if you look at iFixit's repair scores after they tear down some of the newest gear, they haven't been great, they haven't been awesome, especially for things like the original Pixel and the new iPhones and the S8. So
You need to take this heat gun and set it to 500 degrees and then very lightly loosen up the glue and then pry it off with a crowbar, lightly.
I actually found that if you can charge your new iPhone by putting it in the microwave. So, all right, enough of that stuff. Here's a quick update to the story that I previously talked about here. A few weeks ago, Craigslist took down their personal section due to looming legal pressure of crackdowns on illegal sex trafficking. Well, this past Monday, the FBI and a bunch of other law enforcement agencies seized Backpage.com, a site dedicated to personal ads that was allegedly being used for all sorts of illegal sex stuff. Allegedly. The same things happening here that was happening on Craigslist. Yes. I mean, this is a step in the right direction when it comes to curbing the practice of selling people into sex against their will, which is fucking depressing and disgusting, but this has come under fire from sex workers who are using the service legally, or at minimum, of their own free will, to work that. The founders of Backpage got slapped with 93 counts of running an online prostitution ring, and legal documents claim virtually every dollar flowing into Backpage's coffers represents the proceeds of illegal activity. So if you look at these old dudes, I'm guessing we won't be hearing from them again because with 93 counts, they're probably gonna go away till they die because they're old. Now let's wipe that from the palate. Now, do you remember the biggest travesty of 2017? Obviously, I'm referring to Agipai's Harlem Shake video. Yes, that terrible blight on humanity. Well, it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, not just because it was one of the cringiest things to hit the net last year, but it also used copyright music and completely sidestepped the argument, net neutrality, while trying to say that net neutrality is not necessary. Well, even after a Freedom of Information Act request to release the emails internally, where the FCC discussed the video, the FCC stated that it would not release the emails because if they did, it would foreseeably harm the staff's ability to execute its functions by freely discussing relevant matters. I'm gonna take a long pause here and then go, fuck you. Hiding behind this argument is the closest thing the FCC can do to straight up admitting that not only is net neutrality a literal joke to them, like literally, and they're like, oh, you know, it's funny, net neutrality, ha ha ha, type, don't want the public to see that. But with Pi and his cohorts inside the organization, they're saying that these emails wouldn't let the FCC operate in the way that it's meant to. Why? Well, because people like you and me and a bunch of journalists would see these corrupt ghouls exactly how they are based on how they talk about making a parody video about why changing laws shouldn't matter to idiots like us. My words, not theirs, but come on. It'd probably be their words. So outside of all that news, the one shining little small bit of good stuff happening is that as of yesterday, you can finally see Ricky and Elliot dressed up as Jay and Silent Bob in our new sketch series Vendors. Yes, I know that's checking some boxes for some fanfic or some crossover fic. So go to facebook.com/dankfire and you can see them right there in the thumbnail. Look at them. Aw, and then click on their beautiful faces that we put wigs on. They look like dogs in sweaters. They were not comfortable. But the new series, yeah, it's Vendors, and it imagines basically what would happen if Clerks took place in the center of every video game universe and people came in to buy stuff for all sorts of games. So our first episode tackles Hearthstone, but if you don't care about Hearthstone or loot boxes, tomorrow's episode is going to be about about PUBG, and we've 8 more after that. So follow the channel or keep checking back. If you're like, I'm off Facebook, just go into incognito mode and facebook.com/dankfireshow. And the week after, you can see Avengers as a sitcom. We've filmed a bunch of those where Ricky plays Hawkeye, dead. Elliot plays Loki, not dead. And Shibby plays Groot, because he's tall. So I'll see you guys over there. Bye.
Anyways, that's it for this week's show. Thank you, Phil, for filling us in with they're more like crap facts these days.
Yeah.
But don't forget to watch a new episode of Tugs. There were some issues with that. I'm sorry about that. But watch it anyway, because you love us. And don't forget to watch our show from Monday where we had Lawrence on to talk about stuff like A Quiet Place and various gaming topics. We'll see you next time.
Bye.